but I wanted to talk to you about a few things. What's new for 2020? An early season checklist. There's a few things on here that I talk about every year. What to do when you get to a show, and then preparations for competing, and a few things that I want to just talk to you about from the director's point of view. You being the guard director, or even though many of you are the designers and the instructors, you also function in that administrative capacity as well. So one of the things that's new for I should say for 2020, sorry, it says 19, critiques are only offered at power regionals. That is something that the advisory board decided this year. And the biggest reason for that was because in certain parts of the country, because of the low numbers that enter into some of the regionals, there was the opportunity for critique, or critiques were offered at shows where it was a Saturday and a Sunday event. And not all of our events are that. So some people had the opportunity for critiques and other people did not. And everybody just felt like it was not fair that some people had them available to them because they lived in a part of the country that had a 2-day event, or that some people had them because they lived in the part of the country that the regionals weren't full. If you're in certain parts of the country where every show is full at 45, like in Texas, you're not going to have critique. The same if you're, attending Tampa, or if you're in Southern California, it's not going to happen. You might have them at your local show, but at a WGI show, it's not going to happen. So it will only happen at the power regionals. We'll follow the same format we have in the past, and that's that you're going to, if you're going to championships, you'll get a critique. And that's what the power regionals are. It's that environment where we're stepping up from a regional to the step below where we head into championships, and that's why because of the interest of time, we pick the people that are only going to championships. The other exciting thing and change is that pre-shows are now available for all classes. In one of the info videos, that's the third bullet point here, I did a whole a 10 or 12 minute info video on pre-shows and how people can deal with the second announcement in their music, when they can start music before their pre-shows. There is a mistake in our rule book where it says it's available for world class, and it is available for everybody. Everybody can use a pre-show. And there's a few things in there that you really have to pay attention to. If you're thinking about doing a pre-show, you need to go watch that video because it talks about certain specifics. The one thing that I want to caution you on, and I'll be honest with you, I think I've probably had, I don't know, 25 or 30 people talk to me about wanting to possibly do a pre-show. Your times don't change. Your length of interval time is still the same. So if you want to use music to set up the mood for your show, or you want to tie it into what your show is, there's a few things that you need to really watch that video so you understand. And that's how the pre-show fits into the prep process before you're judging, and understanding that pre-show is not part of the process of that the judges are evaluating. They are not going to judge your pre-show. They are finishing up the previous unit. But if you want to create something that goes with part of your show during the setup process, you're free to do that. But it is exciting that a lot of people are thinking about doing it. I think you're going to see some people doing it early on, and some people are going to add it a little bit later. The other thing, when you look at those info videos, there is one that's also out there about props and the new rule changes in prop safety. And there are a few of those rules that are important. If you're building props that are 6 feet taller or higher, then you really need to watch that video, because there's some changes in there that are really important that you have to make sure that you understand. Okay, early season checklist. So there's a number of things. So before we can publish you in a regional schedule, we have to have the master agreement returned to the office. That schedule is always published 3 weeks before a show. On rare occasions, we publish it the Monday, after 3 weeks before, and that's usually for other reasons, and I'm the one that will hold that and say, let's publish it Monday. Sometimes we're looking for information from groups that haven't competed yet, but it's important that your master agreement get turned into the office as quickly as possible. If there are any issues with your master agreement with the school system or not, then just get it into Judy at the office, and she'll get it in the hands of the right people. If you're an independent group, or you happen to be one of the schools that might be self-insured, then you need to make sure you provide us with your insurance info. And again, that can go to Judy at the WGI office. Typically, that's all the independent groups. I don't know that we've had any schools so far that have fallen into that category yet. But if you're an independent group, you do have to provide us with your insurance, proof of insurance. And you know that if you're an information group. Also, things to just make sure that you jump on pretty quick because first regional starts soon. Make sure your spiel sheet is completed. And don't be afraid when you're putting things in there. If you've got some difficulty, spell things out phonetically. Remember, it's the announcer who's going to read that, and they're not going to be insulted if you do it phonetically. They may or may not know what the name of your show is, how to pronounce your school, or something like that. So spiel sheet completed is kind of important. Also on the same WGI website, you got to provide your music selection, okay? And that's something that you have to do. And then one that's really important, and Judy talked to me about today, was providing us with a cell phone number for when you're going to be at the event, the day of the show, something that where we can reach somebody, you know, if we need to get a hold of somebody with the unit. Normally, you know, we would look for a director, say like if we had a tie that we needed to break a tie. The ties are going to be broken by a random numerical draw that the tabulators only will have. So if you end up in a tie situation and you see you going on first in the tie, it's because Competition Suite does a random draw of everybody in that class for that show. And we number, say like you're an independent A, we might do 1 to 9. And if you're number 3 and you tie with somebody who's number 6, you're going to go on first if you tie with number 6. But it's a new draw for every single regional, so you don't end up with number 3 in every show. If the next show you go to, there's only 5 independent A, you could end up drawing number 5, and that's how that works. We used to try and get a hold of the director typically, and that's why we look for a cell phone number. Judy just said to me today, boy, there's any number of reasons, getting a hold of a bus driver, an emergency if a parent calls, anything like that. So make sure you give us a cell phone number. Really a good thing for us to have on hand. We don't share it with anybody. It's just so we have it in the event of something else that comes up. Okay, I want to talk to you a little bit briefly about music uploads. This coming Sunday, I'm doing another one of these webinars. It's not going to be a live one. I'm doing it with Matt Becker from Competition Suite. He and I are going to do it. So we'll upload it early or middle of next week. What we're going to do is focus on how to record your music and the best way to upload your music into Competition Suite. There's so many things that play into how your music sounds when you get to regionals. Some of it is the system itself. Some of it is how it's recorded. Some of it is the format that it's saved in and uploaded. Certain files are compressed versus not. And then we're also going to talk about certain devices that may work better than others, playing off of a computer versus, you know, a phone, those types of things. So look for that the middle of next week. But one of the things I wanted to tell you about was you have to go into Competition Suite and set up the information for your staff of who's going to receive recordings for your unit at a regional. Even if you've done that locally in your circuit, it is different at a WGI regional. We don't share that information. Circuits are kept separate from WGI, even though we have a relationship with Competition Suite. We do keep things there separate and private. So to make sure that it stays that way, we make sure that you go in and you set up the who's going to get the information for your guard at WGI regionals. Every year, without fail, it happens a dozen times where people say, I didn't get my recordings, and they thought because they'd already gone in and set things up in Competition Suite locally that it was going to be the same as the regional. It's not. So take care of that. That's important too. Okay, a couple of other things. These are my annual favorites. What to do at the show. Make sure when you're going to your first show, local or regional, arrive early and walk the building and make sure you understand what the flow is, where the props are, you know, where things are going to go, props and doorways. Look at what do you have that's going to go through those. If you've been to that school 50 times and you just have a floor, you could say, okay, I understand what it is. I looked at the map, nothing's changed. But make sure that your kids know where they're going to go. Get into the gym. Get your kids into the gym. If you can get in there early, tell them go in and watch a couple of color guards. Sit on the back. What they're going to do is not only look at the gym and the lights, etc., how people come in, the doorway, setting up, how close floors are. It prepares them for things, you know, mentally, but also they'll get to hear the sound system. And I always said, one of the things I used to tell the kids in my color guard were, okay, be at the show by such and such a date. And of course, we had an independent group, so I can just tell them to meet us there unless we were traveling on bus. And I would say, and at this break, I'm going to do a sound check. Make sure you are in the gym. So they heard the music for our show on the sound system it was going to be played at. Really important, really important. Your kids then hit that doorway with no surprises. They've been in the gym. They know what the lights look like. They know how the floor is going to lay out, and they know what their music's going to sound like when they get there. Really important. Everybody should make sure that you have a show day warm up when you get to the school, knowing that you have a certain amount of time. Make sure you're prepared for that ahead of time. Tell your kids, okay, this is going to be our warm up at the show, and go through that process. I also say that you need to practice with your parents, just like you need to practice with your kids, of getting in the gym, opening the floor, setting up in a certain amount of time, knowing that you have X number of minutes before your name is going to be announced, and practice all of that. So one of the things that is in the video about pre-shows is, if you don't designate otherwise, when you open up your floor to the timeline, you get to the center timeline, and then the timing and penalty judge says go. Unless you tell us otherwise, we're going to make the second announcement at 1 minute and 30 seconds if you're in A and Open, or 2 minutes if you're in World. Okay, you can change that time frame. So it's important that when you practice with your parents and your kids, coming through the doorway, opening up the floor, getting to the timeline, then saying go, and then how much time does it take to set up all your equipment? And you're gonna have to chase that one Susie in the corner who's always slow setting up her equipment. But when you do that and you've got your own little stopwatch and you say, it takes us 2 minutes to set up. Okay, either we have to do a faster job, or I'm okay with that, that's nice and comfortable. Then you go to the timing and penalty judge and say, second announcement at 2 minutes. One of those things that, watch that video and it will explain it all, but it's really important that you practice setting up what the show is going to be like when you get there, so your kids know how fast they have to move, how frantic things are going to be if you're in a crunch for time, but your parents know as well. Getting off, getting on, and then making sure that you're aware of what the times are associated with your show. Okay, sound checks. Verify your music is uploaded as soon as you get to the school, okay? In the event that music's not there, it's no reason to panic. It's no reason to yell at anybody. You can make sure it happens when you upload your music, you get verification. But so you get to the site and you say, geez, my music's not there. Make sure you have a backup device. Make sure you have another means to play your music, okay? Really important that you have a staff member at the sound table while the show is going on. If it's not you, put somebody there you trust, and somebody that, if you're going to be in the stand, you can communicate with, because we only take direction from somebody at the sound table. Early season, knowing what your music's going to sound like, doing a sound check in the gym, having a really good device set up as a backup, and a sound member at the staff table. If you choose to use a device, a phone or an MP3 player or something else along those lines, you have to press play and do it anyways. We don't do that. Once we plug into your device, you're responsible for that. So sound check's really important. And like I said, I always did it with the kids in the gym. So it's just one of those things where, if you have to go to school at 8 o'clock in the morning to do it, that's fine. But, if you can work it out so you can give your kids that opportunity, it just takes one of those things off their scared checklist, because they are going to be scared. They're anxious anyways. Chances are the show's not done. They might not have flags. Their uniforms might not be in. They know that the show's not completed yet. It's the first show. It's anxiety. My first day in the varsity. All of those things are already weighing on their mind. And if you can just calm them with some other things, and when you're standing at that door, you can say, you've already been in the gym. You already know what the music sounds like. We've already rehearsed opening and setting up, so don't panic, just relax, take deep breaths, and have a great show. It's really going to set them up to be successful. So making sure your sound check is done is important too. Prepare your kids for things like that you have an incomplete show, and that numbers may reflect that. Things like no costume silks, floors, props. Yeah, those things will impact what your number's going to be. There's certain production values that are taken into consideration. But prepare your kids that, because you're at a certain point, that you're comfortable with that, and as a staff you are, but that may have an impact on the number that's going to be giving to them. Remember, even if you get to go to critique locally, judges aren't going to answer a question when you say, how do you think we'll do, when we're done. Their job is to evaluate what you present to them. So, I've always said, you're better off to put out 3 minutes or 3.5 minutes that's got some meat to it, and also has some detailing to it, so that even if you're in all blacks and you're not using show soaks yet and stuff, there is some substance there. Don't just not pay attention to some of those things and say you're going to get to them later. We've all been there. We've all had those stages in our season where we do that. But prepare your kids for that too. So when they say, geez, we got a 63, how come? It's a 63 based on where we're at, and that's their part of the process and your part of the process. Scoring an incomplete show is really one of those things where it's difficult on the judges too, but their job is to evaluate what's presented to them. So prepare your kids for that. Prepare yourself for that as well. When you go to a critique, your job is to talk to them about what you presented. Be prepared when you go into critique, especially if you have them locally. But you can talk about what your show is going to be, but really listen to their tapes and hear what they're saying about the stuff that's there. You can make a sound decision on evaluating what they reacted to and what they didn't based on what's there and what's not. But in terms of your show being incomplete, prepare yourself for that as well as your kids.